Hi, everyone. This is Eric Gibbs with Gambling News. I'm here with Oliver Niner, PandaScores head of sales and an expert in commercial strategy and sportsbook. He has an extensive experience in business development and is now taking on a very challenging role of helping to develop gaming products for PandaScore. His background includes an 8-year stint at Bet Genius, and he's now using his talents to bring PandaScore to the front lines of the esports industry. Esports, of course, is a big deal right now, and it will continue to be so from this point forward. PandaScore has developed a niche in its operations, providing real-time data and odds for all major esports leagues, including League of Legends, Counter-Strike Global Offense, and others. And it does so with the use of artificial intelligence, which also adds a neat twist to how the information is developed. Uh, PandaScore is partnered with BetCris, Ladbrokes, and others, and is continuing to expand its reach as esports becomes more prominent throughout the world. So, having said that, Oliver, thank you for joining us today. I'm looking forward to getting some insight on what PandaScore has in the future and where esports is headed.
Thanks, Eric. It's really good to be here. I'm really excited to have a chat with you and to expand on these things.
Awesome. Now, obviously, as I alluded to, esports has been enjoying continued growth for the past several years, but it wasn't until recently that betting became part of the ecosystem. To what do you attribute the sudden increase in interest in esports betting?
It's a very interesting point. I mean, I think it's always been there, and I think the gambling space has always wanted to interact within the esports space because esports kind of exploded in popularity as long as far away as 5 years ago. I mean, one of the games you introduced there, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, has essentially been in one form or another been around since 2000. So a lot of these esports are very well established, so that growth has been perpetual. But I suppose what we've seen recently is before the pandemic, some of the teams in LOL and in Counter-Strike started to embrace gambling advertising, much like football or any other sport. So that started to happen, and then there's potential for advertising and these revenues. There's always been a bit of a conflict within esports because it does appeal to a younger demographic and kids are involved. And I think there's been a balance, and some teams and some competitions want to kind of keep well away from kind of association or public association with gambling, but some have embraced that. So that started. And then you've also got, early on when my journey in esports started when I was at Marathon Bet back in 2016 or even 2015. I was having conversations with VSL, and I went to an event there, and it was 25,000 capacity. It was still huge. It's big, but you had a lot of people wanted to kind of tap into the possibility of making revenues from gambling and offering markets, but no one did it very well. No one was making money out of it for a long time. But then, some of these guys are my competitors, but you have to take your hats off to people like Pinnacle and Betway who do, and they do make money, and they did very well. And that the more people have various success, the more people kind of see that these things work, the more other people want to adopt it. And let's be honest, the gambling industry in terms of sports betting, fights very hard not to be stale, but innovation is very, very rare, apart from big innovations like in-play betting and exchange betting, and maybe these it's quite rare that you have these very, very innovative moments in terms of products. So there's always the desire for new content, and I think esports came in has always had that potential. It's just someone has got to come along and do it well. And then finally the pandemic hits and everyone loses their content, and guess what? What's still going on? Esports. We can still have esports events via online tournaments can still be organized. It can still, the transition to that can still happen, and the industry in a lot of ways turn to it. Some turn to it in better than others, And some people turn to us, and some people turn to other, some of our competitors, and it held the industry up in many ways for a period during when there was no content, and that backed up by the kind of the general growth that we've seen has led people to suddenly take note and kind of go, yeah, actually we've got to we've got to kind of embrace this. We've got to kind of, well, how can this work for us?
Mhm.
And I think that's where we're really excited, and we're really looking forward to being part of that conversation, helping our partners and our future partners do that.
Well, and you're definitely off to a great start to that end with some of the partners you've already connected with. Now, going off script for a minute, you talked about how esports is primarily a younger generation industry, and that has kind of kept some inside of the betting industry away. Let's talk for a minute about how sports betting in the U.S. is changing and how college level betting is beginning to be embraced. Is this helping fuel more interest in esports betting as well? Since obviously college level, esports younger generations are intrinsically tied.
I think I'm not sure if it's. I mean, I couldn't comment on whether they were related, but what you definitely see is the bettors that you get for esports interact with media differently.
Mhm.
I can give an example. I'm a as well as being an esports fan and engrossed in this for my work, but I'm a sports bettor. I've been doing the same thing for years, and I'm a consumer of sports content. And you can only look and see like Sky Sports, for example, in the UK, their subscriptions are going down because people are not consuming sport in the same way that I do, and that's younger generations doing that. So there's a completely different way that people interact with this with the content of esports. Platforms like Twitch, they're talking to each other through Reddit, and they're using YouTube in ways that I wouldn't have only just kind of started to fully understand. So I think the overall interaction is the thing that's changing. Is how people and esports is a bastion of that because you have to interact with it in that way.
Sure.
Maybe even college. What's happening with people embracing college football in the States is actually those generations are used to interacting with esports in that way, and they're kind of taking that into the college environment. It could be a bit of both, but that would be pure speculation on my front. It's interesting that's happening.
It is, and it's going to be very interesting to see how everything develops across the entire gambit of options, from traditional sports to esports over the next couple of years. Now, PandaScore is obviously now an integral part of the esports betting scene. What are the challenges that the company has had to overcome to get to where it is today?
I think the biggest one really is always making sure that people understand and see sports as relevant. I mean, the products are exceptional. PandaScore itself is 5 years old, and it came out of we're a stats company, stats and data company, and we produced and collated and put AI behind esports stats. And then we made the shift about and when we think about this, is a startlingly short period of time, but to the growth that we've got, we made the shift 2 years, 18 months ago to produce odds product. And once we've got a wonderful culture of kind of micro experimentation and test and learn and being data driven within PandaScore. So I think that culture has seen us be able to kind of demonstrate to people that our product does work. And we were always very good at interacting in the esports space. And I think the biggest hurdle to overcome is to, as you listed some of our clients there, is to, build a reputation that's good enough and a product that's good enough to bring on board tier one operators, BetCris, Ladbrokes. These are big brands for a company in the early stages. And we're partnered with Scientific Games. We're people are noticing us because of the strength of our product.
Sure,
and I think
of course.
That was the biggest challenge, I think, before my time, but that's what they had to overcome.
Now, of course, you've been there since March of this year, if I'm not mistaken, correct? So relatively newer to the company, but with a huge responsibility in driving the company's growth, and both in local as well as larger markets. So speaking of that, two-part question. The first one is, what is the company's short-term growth strategy?
Short term, bring on board more partners. Go. We're adopting a regional strategy. We have a relatively large sales team for a company of our size. So 4 to 5 people, including myself, and we're going in multiple different directions at the same time. So we're trying to. Nice. I think for us, it's important to onboard good, healthy partnerships with customers. And we've been pretty aggressive in our revenue targets and the scope of what we're trying to onboard. We're hunting big fish. We're going after the big companies, but we also know our background and we want to provide and deliver good quality service to also customers who have inhabited the esports space. So the skin gambling and the kind of smaller kind of startup operators as well. So we are going in. We've created strategies for very kind of surgical approaches into certain markets, and we are following those. But that's a 6-month plan. We review it again, see what we can onboard and what big guys we can get there. I'm sure we'll have more exciting announcements as this year progresses.
I don't doubt that at all.
No. But that's the kind of short term, and then we'll see where we go from there.
Now, okay, expanding on that, what are the company's long-term growth strategies, especially when you target something like esports, which is so global? You've got to think certainly outside of the box. So what are the long-term growth strategies that are currently being considered?
Different markets. Long term for us is is the other side of, maybe kind of Q1 next year. We'll be looking at America, definitely. The US, that's a big one, potentially Asia. Big markets for us, and we have to kind of work out how we do our expansion there. But more interestingly, ultimately, PandaScore, we want to dominate and be the go-to stats and data partner for the esports industry. Not just the betting and gaming industry. We want to dominate that space because we believe our product provides our customers and our potential customers uplift in their in their product offering. But also we feel we're part of that. We can build on part of that ecosystem. I can say let a brief bit of news, like for you, a bit exclusively here, is we've just hired someone especially dedicated to data rights and to partnerships. So we're going to be looking and exploring that space and seeing how we can deliver value there, because we feel strongly that within the industry, without naming names, we feel that the market there, or people the technology doesn't make the most of the data part, the data that's on offer. And we feel that we can really excel. It's something, as you said, 8 years of BetGenius, something that they've done exceptionally well. They really make the most out of the data partnerships they have and bring value to their customers, their gambling customers. We want to do the same, but we also want to do the same for the people who hold the rights or who are selling the rights of the tournament organizers. So there's a great bit of interaction which is going to happen there, and I can't come back to that again. I've got a wonderful kind of test and learn and data driven approach within the company. It's a fantastic culture. It's probably, I'm not going to be funny and say that it's probably the best culture I've ever worked for. It's very, very healthy.
Nice.
And it really, that we will try things out, and we'll try things out in the right way. And then if we prove to ourselves and to our customers that they work, we know we will take it out into market and do that.
That's good. And of course, with your experience in business development, you're going to have, your finger on the pulse of what will work the best in developing new channels and new revenue sources. So that's good, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how things develop along those lines over the next 6 to 8 months, like you had mentioned. Now, you mentioned that the company was in talks with some big names. Can you do any name dropping, or is it too early for that?
Quite yet. I'd love to, but they will come. So
Yeah.
let me just watch this space. I'm my team is very busy at the moment, so which is a good sign. So we will certainly have some big news coming in the coming weeks and months.
That's awesome. We look forward to it, definitely. Now, where is PandaScore currently seeing the most interest in esports wagers? And that's referring to geographic, not necessarily in particular games.
That's really interesting. Yeah, we're completely spread, really. I think we're following the areas that we're targeting. We see a lot of activity in the CIS, so there's always been a market that's embraced esports, and esports is very big there. So we're having some good conversations, some good traction there, and operators are onboarding it. We just we just started, and we've actually completed the integration for a new partner, LoopBet, who are looking at that region, and that's shows an indication that we're going. That's a kind of a direction of travel in terms of what we know in terms of potential for us. But we're having great conversations in the UK. That's interestingly enough, esports again, Betway done fantastically and over there, but we also believe that we can add value to some of the bigger operators there, and we will do. And then it's your usual things. I think we're being tentative about the US at the moment. I think because we want to see how that plays out. Regulation is obviously. I know we're going to talk about this a bit later on, but regulation is obviously something that you have to be very. We have to be very smart with, and that's something that's something we have to kind of consider. But I wouldn't say that there's a particularly growth area. I'm really excited about some areas in LATAM which we haven't touched yet. So really excited about Mexico and Brazil. Brazil is on the cusp of regulating, and I think that could be a very powerful new territory. We're going to explore that. Southern Europe is untapped. There's potential there for growth. So and obviously I've got partners in Australia, and there's potentially lots of interest there. So we're going in a lot of different directions, but we're not seeing one area really shine through.
Yeah, that's good. I mean, and that shows the power of esports and what's going to be coming down the pipe over the next couple of years in both the esports competitions as well as specifically, the betting segment for esports. And of course, some of these competitions lately have been doling out $1 million, prizes, and we have new esports esports organizations popping up all across the U.S. at the collegiate level, at the high school level. These are now accredited courses, that the players are getting credits for, which qualify toward their high school diploma or their college degree, what have you. And so I think that speaks highly of the legitimacy of esports and in the sports world, and what's going to be seen, in the future over the next decade as it continues to grow. You, of course, hinted about the regulatory aspect of esports, and in particular in the US, which is a menagerie of it's a patchwork of regulations and guidelines and laws and rules, and with sports betting being a legal activity now, after decades of being suppressed. It's not like in Europe where betting was accepted, and getting over this resistance in the US is a big challenge. And then having to deal with so many different regulations becomes an even larger challenge. So how does PandaScore approach its operations from a regulatory standpoint, and how does it deal with all of the different obstacles that are constantly put in its path?
So there's two elements to this, I think, and I think it's, we're early in this stage, but we have so because we're a data company, we're an odds and data provider. There's a different interaction with that with certain states in the US. We know that. So it's profiling how that works, but also we have a duty of care and a responsibility, and this responsibility we've always embraced, to guide all of our partners, not just the ones in the States, but also all around the world, in what that regulatory framework looks like and how esports interacts with that. Now, we are consulting consistently about understanding that. It evolves all the time. We all know that as from state to state, we see quite interesting things esports is probably more considered in some of the states which have opened up more recently. And they have more specific ideas about what esports looks like and what kind of things should be there. But we have to just make sure on a technology level that we are giving, our APIs and our data is transparent and clear, and we're giving information that is needed. As an example, because we've got, one of our clients is Pixelbet in Sweden. One of the things that is vital in the Swedish market, which is a very closely regulated market, is understanding the age of the players that participate and are part of these esports teams. That's also reflected in the US. So we've already got that kind of robust piece of, it's not a piece of technology, but this kind of robust data set which enables us to work in these areas. And then it's a knowledge piece. Then it's working with, we want to start working and talking to regulators and understanding what their feelings are with esports. Esports has got to we've got to move it into the central space, into where, into kind of normal mode, if that makes sense, rather than being this periphery thing. There's lots of talk of esports becoming the fifth vertical, and all these phrases that get kind of chucked around. But esports is doing as much work as is going on in ITF tennis and the Challenger series in there to kind of combat match fixing. But people don't know this. So we have to basically make sure that regulators and operators have a good, clear picture, and that we have that responsibility to be the knowledge hub for that. And that's something we're developing and working on and building ourselves. We're going to be producing knowledge pieces and white papers and advising the market and building that voice as well.
Nice. And of course, what that ultimately means is that PandaScore is in a position to help, shape the future of esports on a global level, and help determine, what works and what doesn't. And with the tools and artificial intelligence and the brain power like yours that are helping, create the company and drive its mission, it's going to be, PandaScore will be in a really good position to help determine how well esports is received. Along those same lines, and really hand in hand with everything you were just talking about, how is PandaScore addressing any resistance that they're getting when approaching operators about esports? I'm sure some traditional operators have been a little bit more standoffish, if you will, about discussing esports betting. So what does PandaScore do to help them see the benefit of introducing esports betting?
We have to talk their language. I've been talking to traders and to training directors and CMOs and CTOs most of my career, in this industry. And you have to understand their pain points, understand what their priorities are, what they're doing. I remember going to it was a conference about, this must have been about 4 years ago, and we were talking about technical debt and backlogs. And I think one of the guys, again, I won't name drop whoever from, said something like it was like 95% of my technical work as an operator is spent on compliance, and then there's a bit for innovation, a bit for integration, and this is terrifying. And so we have to understand, the pain points are very, very clear. Can I get this into my backlog? How do I justify a spend on something which maybe isn't making me money? Can I, does esports even fit into my brand? What do I have to do? For operators where they know the potential, these are easier conversations. They know that they're going, and those are coming more and more apparent. We're getting approached more by operators who want a dedicated esports supplier. That's a fact, because they know, they know that that esports, can't be just viewed as another tack on sport, thrown in as part of a bargain bucket. That's those days are going. You have to have a dedicated esports product with solid marketing tools behind it, with a dedicated esports trading team, producing our own margins, these kind of things, stuff that we do exceptionally well. So I suppose those are the proper areas of resistance. I'm very confident in my team's ability to overcome those. I'm very confident in basically, if an operator were to adopt our product, they would see uplift. They would see more events, more better margin. They would see more interaction, more higher volumes. And they'd have a partner who was there to learn and work with them. But there are things to overcome, absolutely. But I think our biggest frustration is the fact that essentially the industry and the ecosystem has got used to shoddy, underperforming product. And that's something we can address, but we need to basically appeal to operators to say, that have a dedicated esports service and do that with us. We'll work with you on it. It's worth the investment. We'll take away, we've spent a lot of time taking away the pain of integration. We integrated our recent partner in just over a month, from contract signature to having events in production. I'm talking to you now, and there are events now in production.
Nice.
We did that quickly. We did another, mate. What I love about PandaScore is I was in Paris last week for the first time since the pandemic. I finally met the team, and it was awesome. And I spoke to our our product owner for the odds product, and he said to me, what do we do that's exceptional? And he said, and that day we basically had there was a feature which a prospect had come to us and said, can we do this? Can we do this? I can't say what it is, but maybe further down the track I could. And we followed every single proper methodology in deploying the product, in kind of planning it, designing it, implementing it, doing the tech work, testing it, going for UAT, and putting it onto test and then into production. And we did that all within a very, very short period of time. Again, probably around about a month. And it was a relatively, it wasn't an insignificant bit of work. It was a new feature.
I would imagine so.
And it was, and the guys there were like, well, this isn't out of the ordinary. Why? This is what should happen. And it's like, well, you don't understand how rare that is in the industry. How rare it is for particularly B2B suppliers to produce new products. It's like the new features. It's like, yeah, there you go. That's the benefit of, we only focus on esports. We're only focusing on what we know our game is and what we know we're good at. And therefore we can be tailored to our customers and say that. So I got on a little bit off topic there, but I thought that was a good story.
No, not at all. That's perfect. That's great. And that's exactly why PandaScore is able to stand out from everyone else. Now, you mentioned some of the shoddy products and other questionable solutions that have been developed in the sports betting world. Prop bets, exotic bets, have always been a huge draw in sports betting, and will continue to play a huge role in how sports betting develops. I know that PandaScores is working on and has some options in place. How much time and how many resources are being dedicated to develop more esports, exotic, and prop bets?
So, I mean, we've just released player props. We had one of our customers trialing them in over the summer. So we're going to be releasing player props out. I think we already are doing it to our entire customer base and to new customers. So that was one of our kind of key kind of moves. And we're going to build a esports specific bet builder product that's coming. So I would say if they're very important to us, but we listen to our customers. We're not necessarily going to listen to. We're going to obviously understand what the market does. Esports is unique. It's not something. I know that it's important, and we were talking about this yesterday actually in one of our internal meetings. It's important sometimes to understand that esports have got to in some way reflect and look like what normal what
Sure.
standard sport do. But in the end, they are different. The games are different. The markets and events are different. They interact in different ways. So we have to make sure we're doing that based on what we believe is right for the esports market and for esports bettors. But if there's a need for it and our customers want it, we'll build it. As simple as that. And hopefully that story that I told you just now gives you an indication that we can. If we have to react to the market, or if we believe there's something a push, we launched King of Glory in, I think it was a couple of weeks back in the late spring, early summer this year. So we're very, very, we can be very, very adaptive, and we can be very, very agile. I wouldn't even say that we're reactive. We basically understand. We'll listen to our customers. We'll build what they want, what they need. We'll make sure that we have insights into the market and insights into what we think is right, and we'll build that as well.
Awesome, and I think that PandaScore is doing a great job along that front, and I'm really interested to see how the latest innovations play out in the industry. So we will definitely have to circle back around in about 5 or 6 months from now and see how much PandaScore has grown and how much more of a role esports betting is taking on in the global industry. So Ali, I appreciate your time today. This has been excellent, very informative. And I'm really, really looking forward to PandaScore's latest and greatest innovations as it continues to lead the way in the esports scene. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
I mean, it's been brilliant chatting to you. I've really enjoyed it, and we've got tons more to share. I'm going to be in Barcelona. I'm going to be at iGamingNews. I'll be at the Betting on Sports and at Sigma. So we're all going back on the road.
Nice.
In the next, over the kind of course of the next couple of months. So for yourself, please come and find me. We'll have a chat, and anyone else who wants to come, and any of your listeners who want to come have a chat with me, ping me on LinkedIn.
That would be awesome.
Grab me. I'd be delighted to try and take you through what we're doing and tell you a bit more detail. So yeah, we're a lovely open company, and we believe in esports. We believe in ourselves, and we really believe that we can help develop esports, but also help our partners and operators and anyone who wants to work with us utilize esports to kind of bring something really, really good to their customers, some proper innovation, some new stuff. So come find me. We're around.
Awesome. Well, we look forward to seeing you at Sigma. Thank you again, Ali. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I hope you have a great weekend, and we will definitely have to have you back to do a retrospective on how PandaScore has grown in about another 5 or 6 months. We'll see what our schedules permit at that time, and see how well PandaScore is driving the esports betting industry.
Sounds great.
Thank you again, Ali. It's been a pleasure. Take care.
You too.